Good evening, and thank you all so very much for joining us, both here as well as via Zoom. Can you hear me? Okay, wonderful. First, I would like to start with an important acknowledgement. Founded in 1889, the University of New Mexico sits on the traditional homelands of the Pueblo of Sandia. The original peoples of New Mexico, Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache, since time immemorial, have deep connections to this land and have made significant contributions to the broader community statewide. We honor the land itself and those who remain stewards of this land throughout the generations, and also acknowledge our commitment relationship to Indigenous persons. We gratefully recognize our history. Please join me in welcoming our partners, friends, colleagues across New Mexico who are both here with us tonight as well as those joining via Zoom. We are grateful to have members of our university leadership here also supporting of this work. To our district partners and community leaders joining us in person and across the state, thank you for everything that you do every single day to keep New Mexico growing, learning, and moving. This is our first State of the College, and that's intentional. Not because we haven't had work to share before, but because this moment feels different. Over the past few years, we've been building alignment, momentum, and a clear sense of who we are and who we serve. And that kind of work doesn't materialize right away. It happens in conversations, in decisions, and in small shifts that begin to move an organization forward. And then, over time, when you reach a moment like this, you can step back and see it. And so today is about stepping back to see what we've built and also where that's taking us. The progress we celebrate today is the product of shared leadership, collective expertise, and a deep commitment across this college. For this reason, I've invited members of my leadership team to join us later this evening to share their perspectives, because no one person carries this work alone, and definitely not within this college. At the end of the day, this is a college built to serve New Mexico, and I mean that very literally. Our work shows up in classrooms, in clinics, in urban centers, as well as tribal communities across the state. We prepare educators and educational leaders. In this academic year alone, we have 301 teacher candidates working across 156 schools, across 225 zip codes, from Farmington to Roswell, Las Cruces to Taos. Our college also prepares professionals across the human sciences and allied health professions, supporting individuals, families, and communities' health and wellness at every stage of their life. And when you stop to look back and see this, you begin to see the full picture. This is not one program or one department. This is a continuum of work that touches the lives of New Mexicans across generations. And for many of us, this work carries a much deeper meaning. It's a privilege of returning to the communities that raised us, to give back and help us to build something stronger there. That matters in a state like New Mexico, because the people we prepare don't just go somewhere else. They stay, they serve, they lead right here. We don't just sit in New Mexico. We are the heart of how New Mexico works, and we are also how it moves forward. That commitment to New Mexico also carries a responsibility. And for us, that responsibility is very clear. The Yazzie Martinez decision made visible what many communities in the state have known for a very long period of time, that not all students have had equitable access to the education that they deserve. And while Yazzie Martinez focused on education, we also know those same disparities exist in health and human services. And so that question for us is not whether those disparities exist. The question is how we respond. For the college, that's not something we observe from a distance. It's something we're called to respond to. And that response shows up in our work every single day. Through longstanding efforts like the Institute for American Indian Education, through restorative justice partnerships in schools, through bilingual and indigenous language teacher development, as well as programs like the Family Development Program, which reaches every single county across the state of New Mexico. What ties all of this together is not a single initiative. It's a way of working. Equity here is not just an initiative. It's a responsibility and a way of being for us. So, if we're serious about that responsibility, it starts with the people who carry this work forward. With strong university support, and I'm so grateful for our university leader, Provost Barbara Rodriguez, being here, who's been a great partner in this work, as well as through strong state partnerships, including recent legislative investment providing more than $18 million in endowed faculty positions, we've brought in new faculty with expertise across the areas New Mexico needs the most. At this point, I'd also like to recognize some of our state leaders, both here as via Zoom, including Senator Pope, who's been a strong advocate for us here in the college. The support of our partners include faculty in bilingual and early childhood education, literacy, STEM and special education, and indigenous communities, just to name a few. NMPED provided us $17 million because they believe in us and they knew that we could execute this work. And we're also grateful for our partners in the New Mexico Early Childhood Education and Care Department for providing an additional $1.2 million to also support these important faculty lines. Through our partnership at the university, through the provost's office, as well as some strategic investment in the college, we also invested in work in the human sciences. Work reflecting cardiometabolic health, substance abuse counseling, to maternal and infant health. And we've moved quickly to translate those investments into real capacity. That means hiring and supporting the best faculty, responsive programs, and real support for our students. We've been highly successful in our faculty searches and hiring cycles, increasing faculty since the time I was hired as dean by over 20 positions. When we welcome our newest group of faculty this fall, over 48% of those faculty will have been hired in that same 3.5-year time period, which is amazing. We've reconfigured and grown our staff infrastructure. We have close to 60 staff members at the present, representing growth of over 42% in recent years. We've strengthened our faculty and staff mentorship. We've adjusted compensation to bring experienced professionals into our classrooms. We've created stronger connections across departments as well as roles across our college. Because this work depends on the people being able to do their best work and for them to stay. And that's what we're building, not just growth, but a community of professionals who are committed to this place, these people, and our mission. At the end of the day, the strength of this college is not our structure. It is our people. And when you invest in people like that, students feel it. And we're already seeing that in real ways. More and more students are taking advantage of the Opportunity Scholarship and other state-supported programs and entering our fields at much higher rates. We now have 103 students in our teacher residency program, which is the largest in the state of New Mexico, and also 96 in paid student teaching. Since the pandemic, our enrollment has not only recovered, it's grown, and that growth has been sustained, and that matters. That tells us there's something here deeper than numbers. It tells us students are seeing something here. They see a path, and they see their future. Students are finding their ways in through intentional initiatives like You Can Teach, through graduate outreach, and through transfer partnerships. When a student can see themselves in the work and they feel supported in that journey, they don't just enroll, they commit. And they're finding that place to belong. Through early connection, community, and identity in the profession. And we know that sense of belonging matters. Because when students feel connected, they stay and they finish, and that's when real impact happens for our state. We've worked incredibly hard to make that journey clearer, from first connection to professional launch and licensure, by removing barriers, strengthening our support, and aligning our systems. And that result is simple. Students are choosing us again, and again, they're staying. And that doesn't happen by accident. It's happening because our programs are evolving. We've strengthened our program accreditation supports. We've worked to modernize our curriculum and aligned our programs with workforce and community needs. We're also currently taking a comprehensive look at our offerings, working with national partners to ensure that we're responsive, relevant, and forward-looking. Because the professionals we prepare today are stepping into incredibly complex and evolving environments. And it's our responsibility to prepare them for that reality, not just to enter the field, but to lead in it. When that work is grounded in real need, it doesn't stay in one place. It extends into the work we do as a research institution. Over the past few years, we've seen significant growth in research activity, with proposal submissions increasing by more than 40% since 2022, reflecting both an expanded capacity and a growing competitiveness. That growth is translating into impact, with external awards more than doubling over that same period, bringing critical resources into the college to work across New Mexico. That investment is also supporting people, with a 20% increase in faculty, staff, and students funded directly through external work, directly contributing to the economic development of our state. And we've begun to intentionally build in that capacity from within, increasing internal research support by more than 400% over the past 2 years to help our faculty launch and sustain meaningful work. But that's not the point. The point is the work itself matters. It addresses literacy, health, and education systems across New Mexico and the challenges that communities are navigating every single day. That includes leadership development through programs like Pollen, which has now prepared more than 70 Indigenous educational leaders serving across the state of New Mexico. Yes, and actually, I see our Deputy PD Secretary is here, Amanda DeBell, and I want to thank you because I know you have also supported that program as well as our residencies. It includes major federal investments, including 2 OSEP grants, supporting the preparation and professional development of a special education workforce for New Mexico. It includes efforts like TOTOS, strengthening science education through statewide professional learning and leadership development. And it also includes applied research in areas like exercise science, where faculty are investigating the impact of heat and environmental conditions on the health and safety of our New Mexico workforce. Faculty are also leading emerging research in areas like concussion and the performing arts, helping ensure the safety and well-being of both our students as well as our artists. What connects all of this work is that it's not theoretical. It's embedded in our communities, and it's responsive to our needs. It's designed to make a difference. And when research is rooted in that kind of purpose, recognition follows. In the past year alone, our district partner teacher residency program received the Association for Teacher Education Billy Dixon Award for the 2nd time. Dr. Sean Secatero was recognized nationally for his work in multicultural education and educational leadership. And faculty and students across this college continue to be recognized for their contributions to their fields. People like Dr. Kevin Schroeder, who received the 2025 Rocky Mountain Athletic Trainer Association Distinguished Educator Award, and Dr. Whitley Atkins, who won the Early Career Faculty Investigator Award this past fall at the annual meeting of the Southwest chapter of the American College of Sports Medicine. But again, that's not the goal. The goal is impact. This impact shows up in where we are and who we're working with. We are deeply connected across New Mexico in schools, communities, and partnerships that extend well beyond this campus. This includes our work with districts across the state, helping to build educator pipelines through residency models, which are now shaping practices statewide including our Albuquerque teacher and principal residency efforts. And I appreciate Superintendent Blakey, who I know is here, who is a 2-time COEHS alumna. But this work doesn't just happen in Albuquerque. We are expanding our presence directly in communities, including embedded faculty and staff, working alongside partners in places like Gallup, helping address regional teacher shortages where they're the most acute. We are also strengthening pathways into the profession through partnerships across the UNM system, aligning associate and bachelor degree programs so that more students, especially in our rural and frontier areas, can move more seamlessly into teaching careers. We're seeing that same approach in the human sciences, with faculty leading work in areas like maternal and child health, nutrition, counseling, and basic needs, directly supporting the well-being of New Mexico's individuals and families. Our work also extends into healthcare collaboration, with faculty leadership in interprofessional education through the UNM Health Sciences Center, strengthening how future professionals learn to work across disciplines. And our athletic training program is supported by a broad network of clinical partnerships, from local school districts and the Kirtland Air Force Base through healthcare systems and national organizations, giving students hands-on experiences in real-world settings. At the same time, our faculty are contributing to statewide leaderships in areas like educator preparation standards, language preservation, and the science of reading, helping shape not just the programs, but the future of education in New Mexico. And that reflects how our work continues to evolve, from our roots in home economics to a broad set of disciplines that support the health and well-being of individuals, families, and communities across our beautiful state. Our reach isn't defined by our campus, it's defined by our partnerships. To do all of this well, we've had to change how we worked. Some of the most important progress over the past few years hasn't been the most visible. It's been how we've aligned our systems, strengthened our infrastructure, and coordinated supports across our college. This includes making intentional shifts in how we operate, like recentering course scheduling at the department level to better support students and programs. It includes strengthening the systems behind the work, from building more consistent processes across faculty and staff to create structures that support our students all the way through licensure. And it includes bringing our student support efforts into alignment through the very intentional creation of the Pathways for Academic Support and Success Office, which now connects recruitment, advising, and student success into a more seamless experience from entry to graduation through licensure. We've also been much more intentional about using data to guide our decisions, partnering with external experts to help us better understand how to plan, revise, and grow our programs. That's allowed us to move from reacting to working with intention. Because the most important changes are the ones you don't see, but the ones that you feel. We've also seen real momentum in how this work is supported. Our college's endowment now exceeds $42 million, and more than $3 million in private support is advancing our work every single year. And that support is not abstract. It shows up directly in the lives of our students and the communities that we serve. Over time, this has meant building a strong foundation with more than 80 endowed scholarships supporting students across our college, and nearly $630,000 in scholarships awarded every single year. More recently, we've seen that momentum accelerate, with 18 new endowed scholarships established since 2023, and new investment efforts like Project Recruit, Retain, Graduate. We've also seen overall growth in our endowment, with nearly $1 million added in the 2 years alone, strengthening our ability to support this incredibly important work long term. Together, State and philanthropic support are helping us to build capacity across our programs, our clinics, and our labs. State investment provides the foundation, but philanthropy, that's a very hard word to say, my apologies, philanthropy allows us to extend that work further, to innovate and respond to emerging needs. And together, they allow us to deepen and extend our impact. As we look towards our centennial, this is not just a moment to reflect. It's a moment to build, to ask, what does the next century require of us? To align our work around the lives in future education, healthcare, and human sciences. This isn't about celebrating 100 years. It's about establishing the foundation for the next 100 years. Before we begin our Q&A session, I want to take a moment to say thank you. To this evening and the work it represents does not happen without people. First, I want to thank our faculty and staff who show up each and every single day to do this work with care, with commitment, and a very deep sense of responsibility to New Mexico. I want to thank Sarah Valles, our college administrator, for her leadership and stewardship of this college. Eden Esquivel, who coordinated all the details that made this evening possible. Andrea Cassett, for being that wonderful connector and supporter, advocator for our college every single day as our development officer. My leadership team and our associate deans who helped to bring together the story that we've shared tonight, as well as our Office of Marketing and Communications, under the steadfast leadership of Bridget Wagner-Jones, for helping us to tell the story. She's helped us tell the story with clarity and purpose, and I appreciate you, Bridget. I'm proud of what we've built together, and I'm even more energized by what's ahead. Because as we've talked about tonight, this isn't just a moment of reflection. It's a moment of invitation, an invitation to be part of what comes next for our college. However that looks for you, through your time, your talent, or your treasure, we invite you to join us in this work, to be co-authors in what we're building together, to help us write that preamble to the next 100 years of this college and its impact on New Mexico. With that, I'd like to invite our senior leadership team to join me on the stage. First, Dr. Jay Parks, Senior Associate Dean for Student Success. Dr. Sarah Nottingham, Interim Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs. Dr. Michael Dominguez, Special Assistant to the Dean for Equity and Inclusion. And of course, Dr. Carrie Hushman had planned to join us today, but had to bow out to deal with an urgent matter. But she is definitely here with us in spirit and definitely very deeply committed with us in this important work. There are many individuals who support the college in moving this work forward and not could all fit on stage. And so at this time, will all the members of my leadership team please stand and be recognized? Thank you so very much. And so prior to transitioning to our question and answer period, I'm going to walk over, and we do have a couple prepared questions for our Associate Dean leadership team, just to help prime and warm up the audience. And from there, I'll invite Andrea to call you up to ask any questions that you might have. All right. So to begin, Dr. Sarah Nottingham. She's, of course, not only our Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs, she's also a leading expert in the human sciences as a professor of athletic training, deeply embedded in her health communities. Sarah, could you please share the ways that the COEHS is positioned to support the university in doubling New Mexico's healthcare workforce?
Absolutely. Yes, so the College of Education and Human Sciences is primed to help rate and increase the workforce, healthcare workforce for the state of New Mexico in a few different ways. One of them is that we have several graduate programs and undergraduate programs in the college where immediately after graduation our students enter the workforce. So examples include we have registered dietitians, we have counselors, we have athletic trainers. So our programs are preparing students to then immediately graduate and enter communities and schools across the state as healthcare providers. Additionally, we also have several programs that are undergraduate programs that help develop students and prepare them for additional advanced professional development and work in the healthcare fields. So for example, we have our undergraduate degree in exercise science, and we are recruiting students into that degree who are interested in healthcare but maybe are not sure what they want to pursue. And so through that program, they're then prepared to enter several graduate healthcare programs such as athletic training, physical therapy, occupational therapy, physician assistant, and including medical school. So there's a lot of different ways we're able to support these students as they pursue different careers.
Okay, thank you so very much. I appreciate that. The next question is to Dr. Michael Dominguez. We know New Mexico is facing a number of critical equity challenges, including the Yazzie Martinez decision and shortages of educators and healthcare providers. Could you please speak to how our values shape our approach to these challenges and show up in our work every single day?
Sure. So the first thing to say is that across the College of Education and Human Sciences, we are deeply, deeply committed to like the depth and the breadth and the full cultural complexity of New Mexico. We are an incredibly diverse faculty. We are incredibly rooted in our commitments to equity and the community engagement with which both our teaching and our research work. To that particular question of the Yazzie Martinez work, but then as it extends out into the Black Education Act, the Hispanic Education Act, the Indian Education Act, right? These things are wonderful reminders of what our needs are. They are wonderful reminders of the inequities that we know our state faces. But for us, they are just that. They're reminders of deep commitments. We see these not as policy mandates and things we have to, sort of like meet in that way, but they just speak to a much deeper, much broader moral imperative that we have in this college to make sure that we are serving New Mexico, that we are serving all of its diverse populations, that we are making sure that that is the very minimum bar that we reach, and that we are preparing our educators, our healthcare providers, and ourselves keeping our commitments in our research and our work well beyond what those sort of like policy dictates ask us to do, right? We are committed at a very core level, and that shows up in our classrooms and our like research spaces all the time. We have regular and meaningful amongst the faculty commitments and conversations about diversity, equity, inclusion, about race, about the inequities that are facing our state. We are engaging that in our classrooms. It shows up in our syllabi. We have classrooms and teachers where those things become the focus of what we do, and they are challenges that we are bringing to the students who are going to be serving New Mexico's incredibly diverse state and the 23 tribal nations that we have in this state. In addition, right, they show up in sort of like the work we do. We are working on grow your own partnerships, both for education and for healthcare, where we're partnering with schools and high schools to bring along the next generation of educators who are bilingual, who are multilingual, who are coming from our reservations, who are coming from our communities. We have real conversations about how we are engaging and like innovating our curriculum so that we're able to share the learning that we're doing on campus with folks who are out in our rural communities and make sure that everything's accessible in very real ways across the huge state that is New Mexico. And it's showing up in our research. We already mentioned some IAIE, the Native Teacher Preparation Program, the RISE Lab. And there's so many more. We have so many researchers doing such deep like equity and community engaged work, and that lives out, right? And the commitments, the moral commitments that we have to serving New Mexico in really rich ways.
Okay. And the last question that I'll ask prior to opening up the Q&A is to my Senior Associate Dean, Jay Parks. How is the COEHS intentionally extending our reach beyond the Albuquerque region, and what does that look like in our practice?
So there are several pieces to that. One of the most important is the partnerships we have and the relationships we build and the work we do with many of you who are here tonight. Our branch campuses are special partners for us in talking through how students get from branch to the Albuquerque campus. And I know someone from every branch is either here in Zoom, or I see Matt Mingus back there from Gallup. Hi, Matt. Thanks for driving in from Gallup. And those relationships are so important. We try to be a good partner, a good neighbor, and to be present and work with folks in their communities. They know those communities best. They have the foundation there, and so working alongside them is a really important piece. A second way in which we get outside of Albuquerque, if you will, is through a variety of instructional means and modes. So we have some degrees that are available entirely online in the college. We have some that are using a model that's called low residency in higher education, which simply means students will come to campus in Albuquerque for maybe 2 weekends in a semester for intensive study, and then they're engaged in online activities and conversations with their classmates in between those times. And we have our special education department as specialized in the online plus classroom format, where there are students in a classroom in Albuquerque and students online live in a Zoom space, and they're able to fully interact as a single class. And so that opens our instruction up to folks from anywhere, really, and that helps. And then the other thing we've been trying to build on is what I at least call layered networking, that it doesn't just take, I'm thrilled you go talk to chancellors and deans at the branch campuses, that I go speak to my colleagues, counterparts there, faculty, no faculty there, and probably the most important one is advisors, no advisors, so they can make a phone call when there's a question about how a student gets from one place to another. So we've been working very intentionally over the last several years to be good neighbors and good partners and to work together with the folks who know those communities best.
Thank you. And I know the question was beyond the reach of Albuquerque, but we do still care about Albuquerque. And I know that Jay's worked very close with your contemporary over at CNM,
yes,
and really making much more transparent and articulate transfer pathways. And so
yes,
I appreciate that work that you've done as well. Andrea, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you all so much for your illuminations. I always learn so much whenever I get to go to an event and hear everyone speak. We're going to open it up now. Here we go. We're going to open it up now to questions from the audience. If you're on Zoom, you can use the Q&A feature. If you're here in the audience, you can raise your hand, and I will run myself over here so we can all hear your question. Please stand up and say your name and where you're coming from.
Good evening. I'm Lawrence Sanchez, Superintendent of Consolidated Schools, President of the New Mexico Schools Superintendents Association. Dean Goodrich, I found one of your comments intriguing. That's when you talk about the partnership you have with the Gallup and McKinley County Schools.
Correct.
And I'm assuming that's through the local branch?
That is through the local branch, correct.
So we're interested in doing that because we have a good relationship with our Valencia County branch. If we're interested in exploring something like that, what would we need to do?
Well, you just need to email me, quite honestly. We do have some partnerships with the Valencia branch. We actually have a specialized special ed cohort beginning this next year, and we're going to have some instruction at the UNM Valencia branch by our faculty to support a Los Lunas cohort, and I know Belen is looking to join as well on that specific special ed cohort, but I do think there are much greater opportunities for collaboration, and so I'd love to engage in some conversations. I know my Director of Licensure, Marjorie Krebs, it always wants to extend the reach of our teacher residency program, and so please, let's just continue to be in touch.
Perfect, thank you.
Next question, anyone here in the audience? Okay, Okay, I will take a question here from Zoom, from David Rogers. With UNM leading in helping to prepare teachers for the Yazzie Martinez court ruling, how will UNM lead in developing experts for dual language bilingual educators in New Mexico?
So I can speak to that. So I should turn on my mic, not just be loud. We have an incredibly strong bilingual faculty and bilingual programs. That includes a multilingual approach to that. Our programs in the COEHS provide summer institutes for practicing teachers who are developing and working towards their like bilingual credentials and ability to prepare students for the bilingual seal from K through 12 and beyond. And that is in both English, Spanish, and really importantly, right, in English and our indigenous languages. We have an amazing Indigenous Language Institute and Indigenous faculty who are working on developing both Diné and Pueblo language programs for our educators, so that as we think about the Yazzie Martinez challenge, what's involved in that, and then just again the moral imperative of being culturally sustaining and revitalizing to our communities and the 23 tribal nations and pueblos in the state. We have faculty who are working actively with practicing and pre-service educators to make sure they are prepared with really rich, really excellent research-backed skills and pedagogies to be able to ensure that the teachers we're preparing, as many as possible, and again, growing our own, reaching out, building partnerships. Coming up this week, we have bilingual students from a high school coming who are part of the Educators Rising program, hopefully becoming a pipeline of bilingual educators onto our campus and then into New Mexico schools around both, again, Spanish, English, and our indigenous languages. It's a central thing, and our faculty in that realm and area are incredibly strong and incredibly supportive of both our pre-service and our practicing teachers.
Can I put another layer on that? The students and the preparation of teachers and educational leaders is paramount. But buried in David's question is the word leadership, and how is the college leading on some of these issues as well. And I just wanted to point out things like we have been partnering with organizations like Dual Language Education in New Mexico. David didn't say it, he's the former executive director of that organization. But we partner with them on advocacy and on working together to talk with government about how changes should come into place. In the last several years, we've also been a much more present organization in their La Cosecha Dual Language Conference, which brings folks definitely from around New Mexico, but usually involves 30 or 40 other states as well. So we're engaged through our programming and in our advocacy and our leadership and lending our support and our efforts to broader initiatives.
Great, thank you. Did that foment any new ideas, questions, thoughts here from the people in the room? Thank you, Senator Pope.
I don't think it's a new thought, I just feel like I'd ask a question. Senator Pope, I think you mentioned an increase in enrollment for folks seeking degrees. Just want to understand how and how you've done that, and how we get an increase of folks seeking degrees from the college. We all know that increase in alternative license going into education. I know a lot of the role is on us in the legislature, right, as far as funding, making sure we're not putting too many requirements on our educators, because the reality is they're doing so much in the classrooms, even becoming social workers in many cases. But what are you seeing to increase that enrollment, to see that we have more students that are seeking their bachelor's degrees going to the profession?
Mm-hmm. So it's not just one thing, and I'll have others correct me if I'm missing something. First is through Provost Office support, and I want to thank Barbara for this. We increased the number of recruiters that we have in the college from 1 to 2. That's boosted our capacity so we could get out the good word, not only about all the programs that we offer, but a lot of the state support that's also been offered to support folks moving into the teaching field, because I know we're talking about the education field. I think some key legislation has supported us, and so having residency originally be $35,000, but now indexing it with teacher pay, that has brought forward a number of other students, because we know anyone who's worked here at UNM for a period of time, we have a number of students who've been living in their cars, right, who maybe can't afford to go to school. They have to make a decision between supporting their family or getting their education. Or even worse, a number of our students, when they move into that last year, full-time teaching, not having the time to rest because you're all day in school and then maybe working overnight at Wendy's just to afford to live. And so that was integral. But we know there's two pathways even here at UNM. There's the undergraduate traditional pathway, and there's our graduate certificate pathway for those with bachelor's degrees. And we've leveraged that pathway, and the state's providing extra support through a bill passed this year to recognize folks with bachelors, that they should get increased funding based around the education they've experienced. But we've leveraged that with wonderful partners like APS and Rio Rancho and Los Lunas School District to look at specialized partnerships for special education, because we know there's such a desperate need for special educators. Those school districts have agreed that they will pay the full first-year teacher salary and benefits to bachelor's holding individuals on our graduate pathway for special education. But it takes a strategic vision, and this is where I want to thank Marjorie Krebs, Ellen Bernstein from the union, our wonderful partners at APS for thinking of this. We, as an institution, provide the funding we get for those students for residency and give it to the school district. And so we're providing at least $35,000 to those school districts to support the cost of hiring this person on as a full-time educator. And then the school district then just meets the increased need to get them to that full salary, and then of course carries on the benefits with that first year in the ERB. That's made that partnership or that pathway incredibly attractive, and we have found folks across all sorts of fields. Former scientists, we've had former pharmacists, we've had folks working at labs, as well as across a array of other specialties to say, you know what, I have skills and experience, I want to be a teacher, I know I can afford to be a teacher now, and I can make that impact in my community. That's helped us dramatically increase our student size. But I do also think those internal initiatives, looking at restructuring our PASS office, right, and how we support our students, that's also helped us, because students say, yes, we can go there, they see us as people, and they support us through those process. And so, I think those have also been some key things. But what am I forgetting?
Well, in addition, I'd say we've been doing, it's kind of internal work, but we've been doing things like identifying who at UNM changes their major into education. And we've been reaching out to them and saying, come on, you can come. Our data team ran some numbers a year or so ago, and we were seeing 300 people a year changing their majors from something else into education at UNM alone. So even just going into our own backyard and saying, join teaching. The other one I really want to mention, and we need to do a lot more of this, is the branch campuses and the college worked together and redesigned an associate's degree in elementary education that is now available at all 4 branch campuses. It's the same degree, the same curriculum, and they collaborated with us so that 15 of those credits count towards the bachelor's degree in elementary education. So what before had been an associate's degree with less actual education content in it has a 15 credit hour core in it that should someone even take the associate's degree and decide to work as an educational assistant for a number of years, they've got a very good foundation there, and those credits come straight into the bachelor's degree. So it was a bit of inside baseball maneuvering of the curriculum, but it eliminated a bunch of barriers and created some incentives actually for students to do that program there, contribute to their communities, and then as they were able to transfer into the bachelor's degree.
But if I could make an ask actually, because I know there's a number of district partners both in the room and on Zoom. I would love to think about the pathway from an EA to a full-fledged teacher. And I know the legislature worked very hard, I believe 2 or 3 years ago, to provide the opportunity for up to 1 day off for professional development and folks in that pathway. And I would love to take the learning from our residency program, especially our special education residency program, where folks come in 1 day a week to say, can we identify some strong EAs and then work with us to know what day of a week that they're looking to take classes with us? And can we start to build some of those partnerships so we can leverage the folks that we currently have in school who've already made a commitment to the students in New Mexico and get them on that pathway to the bachelor's degree? We haven't figured it out yet, but I know together we can figure that out, and that will also make a real difference in New Mexico.
Programs. I was wondering if you could address the issue of workforce development and any initiatives or programs that you have, especially in lieu of the recent Elevate Quantum, Elevate Space programs, Elevate all these programs that are coming, and businesses that are moving to New Mexico, and how you would address partnerships that you have on this topic.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about the healthcare workforce aspect, and one of the areas that we work with in preparing our students to enter the healthcare workforce is by bridging this with clinical experiences. And so this is looks a lot like maybe a teacher residency, or where how our students in education are working in the schools. Similarly, we have students who are entering healthcare who are working in these positions. So, for example, the athletic training program works with Kirtland Air Force Base. So, this is where we have our students who are interested in that career path be able to actually, near the end of their education, actually spend time in that actual workplace, and then oftentimes they're hired into those. We have several students who are working or who are spending clinical experience time in Albuquerque Public Schools, Rio Rancho schools, and similarly transitioning, and even into private industry, where we have preceptors who are in working with General Mills and working with other companies to help that transition. So we have a lot of flexibility with the curriculum, where we're able to actually have students who are maybe spending more of their beginning of their education in the classroom, but then they're transitioning into actual clinical experiences and fieldwork experiences that are going to allow them to really enter and take those jobs immediately after graduation. So that's just one example, and we look at multiple programs such as community health education that has those models as well. So anyone else to add?
Yeah, we're currently playing with a partner around a counselor residency model. We're actually hoping in the near term we might be able to announce that, and so that would be one major way that we could support the behavioral health workforce of New Mexico, which we know is a desperate need across our state, but especially in our rural communities following the behavioral health shutdown in 2013. And so too soon to announce too much of the details, but we should by the summer make a pretty major announcement about that as well.